Jonathan, there's always this problem about Israelis saying that the Ultra Orthodox, also known as Haredi, do not pull their side of work when it comes to joining the army. What's the current events of what's going on with this? Because last year there was a huge protest and rally when Yair Lapid and Bennett made a law to enlist Ultra Orthodox.
Yeah. So back then, the Haredim were not, or the Haredi Ultra Orthodox parties were not in the coalition, Netanyahu's coalition. So the Yair Lapid was the head of that, of the, I wouldn't say a secular party, but a party that wanted to forcefully push the Haredim into the rest of society and the army, into the workforce, and to restrict their benefits. They pushed hard against, and pushed hard with new regulations on draft requirements, and as well as their schools, and I think the way I look at it now in retrospect is that protest by the major protests that happened all over the cities, particularly in Jerusalem last year, was not simply a reaction to opposing going into the army. That wasn't the specific opposition, but the way I'm looking at it now, it was mainly an opposition to what would happen if they were to follow the regulations being pushed by Yair Lapid and his Yesh Atid party. One of the main concerns that I've heard, I have relatives who are Haredi, I have friends who are Haredi, Ultra Orthodox. The main concerns that I hear is not about not wanting to fight in the army, it's about what could happen if they join the army. We have to understand that Haredi society is, they have boundaries. I have my own boundaries as someone who is, quote unquote, Dati Leumi, or national religious, whatever you want to call it. I put it in quotes because I don't like to label myself. But, anybody who's observant to the Torah has their boundaries. And they have their own boundaries. And one of them is, for example, not to have women commanders, or not to have women dressed inappropriately, or to, be too much in contact with them. And that really should be understandable, because there's many, it's in our tradition, and it's nothing new. And the problem is that there aren't so many units. There haven't been so many units like that in Sahel. You probably know more about it yourself because you were an active combat soldier in the IDF. But there haven't been so many units like that. And so if they were to go ahead and force, let's say, at that time last year, all of them into the army, you'd have a lot of these soldiers in units that they wouldn't feel comfortable in. Units that wouldn't cater or answer to their concerns about what they would be exposed to in the units. And I think, at least at the time, I thought one of the problem is that both sides were not listening to each other. The Yesh Atid side, Yair Lapid side, was not listening to the concerns of the Orthodox, or the Ultra Orthodox community. The Ultra Orthodox was not listening to the concerns of Yesh Atid. Now, I have to say, I think that, if we're going to solve this problem, and if we want to have Ultra Orthodox more and more serve, then we should try to work out a solution to have units that fit in with their concerns. And yeah.
Well, the thing is that they already do have units that fit into their concerns. You have Netza Yehuda and the Kfir Brigade, and recently, about a year ago, they opened up a new unit inside Givati.
That's right.
Called Tomer.
Correct.
That they only take Ultra Orthodox people. They don't take national religious people.
Not even national religious.
No, they don't take them. Only take Ultra Orthodox people from Ultra Orthodox homes. Mm-hmm. And the Netzach Yehuda Brigade and the Netzach Yehuda Battalion and the Kfir Brigade, they take everyone who's religious.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, when it comes to people in combat roles, just about you very rarely see any women on the base, except for the women except for the people that are in charge of the tests, certain tests you have to do with weapons, when you're learning how to shoot. You have also for times when you have go to the shooting range. You have to do what you call the madrik kosher, which in English would be like I don't know. I forgot. You speak Hebrew so long, you
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
You always forget the words in English. I guess it's basically the people that are non-combat roles in the army tend to be women,
Correct.
especially the ones that take care of the financial things of soldiers. And these units, what they do is they take out all those positions and give them to men.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much what they do.
Okay.
But I think there's a bigger issue here, which is just ideologically, they Ultra Orthodox do not believe in the state of Israel, and they don't see the wars that we go in as Milchemet Mitzvah, or in other words, a
that's
war
an
that
extreme
we.
minority.
Well,
It really is. I mean, you're talking about maybe a few sects of Hasidim or Ultra, like the Satmar, for example, or the Neturei Karta sect, and but I'm pretty sure like it's really a small sect as far as I'm concerned.
I wouldn't say it's a small sect. For example, it's not just Nutricarta or Satmar. Satmar is not even connected to Israel. They barely have any people that live here in Israel.
And they have a lot of people. Though.
Not to a large extent. The majority of people of Satmar do not live in Israel.
Correct.
Like if you look at Vilnitz and other Hasidim, they have a lot of Hasidim that live here.
Mm-hmm.
The sect that has the biggest issues with it is Neturei Karta, and you have.
Well, that's what I mean. The Neturei Karta, I don't think is a fair representation.
Well, you also have Todos Aaron.
Okay.
The
But would you agree that the majority of a significant majority of ultra orthodox don't have the position that this is explicitly not a Milchemet Mitzvah or an obligatory, which is, by the way, Milchemet Mitzvah is an obligatory war, religious war in Jewish or Hebrew tradition, and traditionally fighting for the land of Israel is on some level Milchemet Mitzvah, an obligatory war. But you would agree that most don't explicitly hold that it's not incumbent upon us
Well, here's how I see it. The Ultra Orthodox community is divided into three sects.
today. Mm-hmm.
And by three sects, I don't mean different religious views. It's all the same religious views, basic religious views, but the way they identify with the state is different. You have Zionistic Ultra Orthodox people, which are also in the minority. The majority of people are non-Zionistic.
But they're not anti-Zionistic.
They're not anti-Zionistic, they're non-Zionistic. And then you have the third part, which is the anti-Zionist.
And they're a sect, but they're a group, but like I wouldn't say they're a significant minority, or at least today.
I would say they're still pretty significant. They
Okay,
don't.
Well, I think the point is though that I'd like to bring up is that there is a trend. There is a significant increasing trend of ultra orthodox serving in the IDF, and I think the numbers say this year about a little over 2,000 have enlisted, and they're expecting close to 3,000 next year. And I think would it be fair to say that with these new Haredi units being opened up, or new units that are comfortable for ultra orthodox, like Netzach Yehuda and Tamar, would you agree that we could? It's Tomer, not
Yeah,
Tamar.
no, it's Tomer.
It says here Tamar.
Oh.
Okay. Would you agree that these units would continue with these units? We could continue to see a continued increasing trend.
I'd be very skeptical about it.
Wow.
First of all, you have to understand that when they opened up Tomer, they wanted to make it into a battalion.
Okay.
They ended up making it into a company. They couldn't get enough recruits.
Mm-hmm.
In the Netzach Yehuda brigade, they couldn't get enough recruits, so they opened it up to the national religious people, and also to the ultra orthodox people,
Mm-hmm.
because they just couldn't get enough recruits just by the ultra orthodox people alone. They have a very strong idea of sitting and learning and not going to the army.
Correct, but I'm saying if they have, let's say, units that are just men and have a Beit Midrash or a place or a study hall that they can learn in, let's say during the nighttime, I mean, we could see like an increasing trend, don't you think?
No,
No.
I mean, just to be realistic here, if you're in combat,
Uh-huh.
you are so extraordinarily tired, you're not going to have time to learn at all.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's say that. I mean, don't you think it could be worked out in the army that, let's say, okay, they have 2 hours or 3 hours to learn at night, let's say, while during the daytime they're doing combat training and whatnot. You don't think that could be possible?
I mean, they already do it a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's not it's not the kind of learning they would want. You wouldn't learn with the chavruta. You would learn by yourself, or there's a
No, maybe
rabbi that
maybe
would
they have
give
a
a
program
shiur.
there. Maybe they
They,
have a
they'd have a
program.
rabbi that would give like a little lesson.
I think it's
in Torah.
possible. I'm
It,
kind of
it is
optimistic
it
on
is
that.
it is possible. I mean, there are increasing numbers of Haredim that are joining the army, but it's not the overall trend.
No, but we do see an increasing trend though. It is
Yeah,
like
but also
rising.
you have to understand some of those numbers are also inflated. There's also a lot of people that go into these units who are not religious,
Hmm.
and they're thrown in there so the army can give a good PR
Really
campaign.
interesting.
But
Right?
there's also a lot of people that go in these units who are not religious at all, who are from
You know that
from
for a
religious
fact, right?
families. Yeah, and I'm not going to say what names of units
Of
are because
course, yeah.
there's also a lot of desk jobs that take in that are supposed
Well,
to be for ultra religious
well,
people.
I will talk about an interesting development about the Vizhnitz Hasidic sect. Apparently, they've reversed. This is like about a month. This is a report that's about a month old. Apparently, they reversed a two year decision to have its men refuse to enlist in the IDF. That means it means they're pretty much not allowed to join the IDF, and they've apparently that sect has reversed it, um, and the main reason listed here that they originally did not allow their members to join is because of modesty, female soldiers, um, and other related issues. But apparently they reversed it, and um, the reason that this came about is because a result of negotiations between the deputy health minister, Yaakov Litzman, who's from a Haredi Ashkenazi party, United Torah Judaism, and he represented Vizhnitz, and he made it some sort of negotiation with the IDF, um, and the people from the Vizhnitz sect who would go into the army will be supervised by the heads of the Vizhnitz yeshivas. Um, I think this is a really, really interesting new update that um,
It does seem interesting, but I'm still very skeptical about it. I'm not 100% sure about it because if you remember, about almost 2 years ago, when the law came out about the enlistment for Haredim, the Vilznitz Hasidim threatened to leave Israel and go back to America.
correct. But again, remember what I say. It's because perhaps it's because that the way Yair Lapid did it, or Yesh Atid party did it, was we're going to just pull you all out and push you into the army, and who cares which units you're in. I think that's probably what their concern was. That's the way I'm kind of seeing it, because they didn't say it's completely forbidden to serve and fight for Israel. They said, look what's going to happen to our students, and that's really what I heard, or pretty much. So I think now, since they have some sort of negotiations going on, and again, some unity from last summer, I think perhaps that when it's done in a way that's not so forceful against the Haredi and Ultra Orthodox community, and I think it should be ideal. I think it's ideal that everybody serves in the IDF, but you need to. I think perhaps what needs to be done is you need to not be too forceful against the Haredi Ultra Orthodox community, but try to work to their concerns. Allow for more units that'll fit with their concerns and their issues, and I think that that's probably the way to go if we want to successfully enlist more and more of their community, which I think we should yearn to do it. Let's try to do it the right way and try to do it in the most welcoming way, and bring them in because, I understand completely where they're coming from. I have borders and boundaries myself that I abide by.
I think it's going to be very interesting how this plays out over the next few years. Now that you have Haredim that are joining the army, but it's also nothing new. There's been ultra orthodox in the before, and there will be in the future. And I think it'll just be interesting how these communities develop and maybe change over time.
Correct. Absolutely.